Hey, welcome to the Forensic Happy Hour. And as you notice, it's working so far, but you never know. It's 30, 40 minutes, or just we might continue to talk. So we'll see if there's a train wreck, because I do digital forensics and not necessarily on the video stuff. But it should be another great episode. We have Kevin Pagano, and I think I have a lot of questions because he's like a sneaky smart guy. So I think it will be good, and we'll kind of drink beer, because that's I think what we both do well. So we'll figure that out. So cool. Hey, Kevin. The first thing, obviously, cheers. That we have on here. Make sure that we have
Cheers.
fantastic.
Can you see that?
Oh
Back to
my
the Future.
gosh. Are you kidding
It's
me?
a beautiful can artwork.
Wow, that is fantastic. I mean, the sticker, because you're kind of sticker guy, and all that good stuff, right? So again, thank you for coming on. And so what obviously we need to do is tell everyone who's Kevin. I mean, give it a little bit of hey, you can take as much time as you want.
Yeah, I mean, um, I'm a digital forensic analyst by nature. Been doing it for about 8 years now, but I'm still pretty young, I think, and I still got a lot to learn and lot to live, in this community and moving forward.
Yeah. So if we look at on the digital forensic side, is there a specialty? I mean, what did you start out doing? Has it transitioned into something else in kind of the digital forensic realm for you?
Yeah, sure. So I'll give a little bit of my background. Growing up in high school, we didn't have too many computer classes and things. So I was taking as many computer classes as I could. A lot of them were more, IT business related classes, but nothing, related to forensics at all. So going into college, I was not sure what I wanted to do. Um, I actually ended up going into a major of computer science. I thought, maybe I could do some programming, maybe I could make video games or something. So I actually went to Bloomsburg University of Pennsylvania, small state school in the middle of nowhere. Um, the first semester, I took a Java programming class. Didn't do as well as I hoped. And
That's
the
cool.
second semester, I had the next iteration of Java, and I think it was probably the first test. I got like a D or a C in it, and I said, you know what? Maybe computer science isn't for me. So I was looking to see what other majors I could change into, and Bloomsburg actually has a digital forensics program. So I said, oh, well, this seems really interesting. Maybe I'll try this out. So that same day, I switched my major and dropped out of the Java class and the computer science program. Um, but it was probably one of the best decisions I could have ever made because Bloomsburg's digital forensics program is superb, and I had a really good time in college going through the classes and learning a lot of the fundamentals and really building that foundation for sort of forensics as a whole. Um,
Yeah, I
going
think
from
so. At Bloomberg, not to interrupt you, but Bloomberg Scott Inch, right?
Yep, Scott Inch
Yeah,
is
yeah,
one of the
yeah.
major professors. He's a great guy. I reach out to him very often on things as well.
Agreed. Agreed. Great guy. So yeah. So going to school. I mean, transition into that. I mean, this is a great story. Keep going, because I love it. That you're figuring out like, you know what? Let's just try this other angle. And it's one of those things that you're like, yeah, I was meant to do this, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the things that I kind of regretted is not doing more networking while I was in college. Um, I was lucky enough to get a internship with the state of Pennsylvania government side, and was able to do that the summer after I actually graduated. But then I sort of hit a lull and couldn't find a job for 9, 10 months, and it was really difficult, to be honest. And I applied to everywhere I could, and nothing was falling through. Um, so I ended up actually talking with my mom she worked at a chocolate store for a large chocolate company that many people know in the
Yeah,
U.S.
right.
Um,
Starts with an H, maybe.
so she actually worked in the factory store there, and she, is always talking to people as they come in. And one gentleman came in, he had a Bloomsburg shirt on, and my mom, started chatting with him, said, "Hey, my son's a recent graduate. You have any openings? Maybe you could do something." And so he said, "Well, I work in IT, but I can maybe shuffle the resume over to someone in security." And so I sent the guy my resume, and then I ended up getting a contract position doing low-level e-discovery stuff. So I was doing a lot of, hard drive processing, um, a lot of grunt work, a lot of collections and things. And I ended up doing a lot of investigations too because not many people on our team actually knew how to do forensics. So it kind of worked out. So shout out to my mom.
Yeah, we all should give a shout out to to our mothers. I'm telling you, because without our mothers, right, it would be well, we wouldn't be here. So with that being said, I mean, on the forensic side, and this is, I mean, again, probably one of the best stories I've heard. But if you start, it's again, you call yourself green, right? You've been doing this for 8 years, and you've been going through, really starting it from the university side of it. Not a law enforcement background. A lot of people are talking about law enforcement background side of it. So what's the perspective? I mean, in as part of the program at Bloomsburg, sounds like obviously that was for sure needed in that. What type of classes would you say to people, I mean, that are getting into it, that on the digital forensic side, what was I guess the best class that you remember right now of that you took that really assists you every day, out in the real world?
Yeah, I mean, one of our final classes that we actually took in the program was it was sort of learning a lot of the major tools. And what we ended up doing is they would actually give you three different case scenarios pretty much for the whole semester. So one tool, you would use it for the first case. The second tool, you would use it for the second case. And then for the last case, you could use whatever tools you wanted. And you basically got that sort of kind of real world experience and how to walk through an investigation from beginning to end. And then we actually did some mock testimony questioning against, uh, the professor to us, and then we also got the chance to, mock interview other students. So I think that kind of gave a little bit of a fun piece to the end of the course load, but also, get that feeling for how work might be in the future.
Yeah. So a question though too is are you, what type of, I guess, devices, what type of devices are you primarily focused on? Or is it just, the gamut, anything that has a 0 and a 1 in it, that you're utilizing in your kind of a day to day?
Yeah, so in my current job now, I actually recently sort of converted over from e-discovery now to full-time forensics. Still sort of fleshing that out at the moment, but a lot of the stuff we're seeing is a lot of cell phones. Every person mostly in the world has a cell phone attached to their hip all the time, 24/7. So we're seeing a lot of upticks in cell phone cases, but we're also obviously seeing laptops, sometimes servers as well, but a lot of mobile and a lot of dead box
So,
laptops.
so when you're, I mean, obviously, I mean, doing multiple, types of, say endpoints, whether it be, a computer, a server, or mobile device, or some cloud service. I mean, that's a lot of different types of data, and really different approaches. So, how are you keeping up with trying to understand these devices, right? Or the different approaches to these devices, because obviously they're different. So
Mhm.
I mean, what are you doing that assists you in your day to day?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the biggest things that I've seen is, doing extracurricular work, after the actual job, doing, the testing after hours, doing sort of dumping your own phone to see what sort of stuff you can actually pull back from it, parsing your own laptops and seeing, you know, what sort of things you can see using
So
different
scary.
tools.
Super
Uh,
scary when you do your own stuff.
Very scary. I actually recently did a Google takeout dump, and I was like,
Uh,
wow,
uh,
Google is really,
yeah. I'm
keeping a
telling you
lot of
what, man.
information.
Skynet. Exactly right. Exactly what Google is. So in doing that, I mean, grabbing all this data, because I heard this and I know this to be a fact is that it takes a lot of work, right? It doesn't take just, all right, here's a couple books. I'm going to read this book, or, during my office hours, I'm going to, work my 8 to 5 job. This is where I'm going to learn everything. It takes, it takes after hours, right? I mean, there's a lot of stuff that you need to stay up on day to day. And we start talking about even, mobile devices, all the different types of applications that are out there. So day to day. So your advice to people is obviously, yeah, I mean, it's a lot of work. Would you agree?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, like I said, especially with mobile, I mean, apps are ever changing, things are updating constantly. Apple breaks things all the time when they do updates, so you're going to see some weirdness out there, but you got to do your best to stay ahead of the game and um, keep updated with your tools and your knowledge, basically.
So that's really one thing that really stood out and why I said, "Hey, I have to have Kevin on here because I need you to tell me, you know, why I mean, you put yourself out on all of these challenges and win them all. Every single one of them. I mean, so are you do you sleep at all? Do you I mean, what are you doing that again, it's always your name coming up in all these different types of challenges, which to me is unbelievable, right? Because you have a scenario, here's the thing that you do, and what prepared you for that? Or is it just like, I mean, you're born, or it's like the Matrix, just plug yourself in, and I mean, is that what happens? And you're like, yeah, I know how to do this. I
I
mean,
mean, I think it
what is
really
it?
goes back to, just growing up playing video games, just trying to solve the puzzles of the different pieces. And, I enjoy playing CTFs. Whether or not I'm like good at them, I might have won a few here and there, I might have gotten
Just a few.
um,
Yeah, I
a
love
new
it.
coin
Exactly.
today.
Just
So,
just a few of them. Yeah, I
um,
know.
but no, I don't like to brag. Um, but yeah, no, I think playing the CTFs is, it's a learning experience. And, I'm not going to know everything can be found in each question. And that's sort of why some of the CTFs that I do play, I end up playing them over and over again to, try to answer all the questions or try to, do a blog post on my answers and the way I've sort of figured out the questions.
Yeah. So if you can talk to some of those, because this is fantastic information. Because I mean, to typically on those, there's multiple ways to solve a problem, right? There's different people, might solve it a different way. I mean, how do you prepare yourself? Is it just? I mean, do you just have to think outside the box? I mean, if this is how you're going to do it, because if you go A to B to C to D, obviously that's a lot of people are structured that way. Whereas can you go from A to Z in solving it, depending upon? I mean, what is your process in figuring these things out? Is it just trial and error?
Sometimes it's trial and error, but it's just really knowing, where artifacts are located on a system. Knowing, where to look for a certain specific artifact. Uh, but also, it all depends on how your tools are parsing things. If you sort of have pre-processed stuff, you already know where to look for things, look for answers. But sometimes some of the answers, you got to really dig into, this SQL databases or, P-lists, or depending on what type of evidence you're looking at, you got to dig a little bit further.
Yeah. So with it, I mean, to expand on that a little bit is as part of this process too that you do in these challenges, um, it again, trial and error, being able to go through all of these other items. I mean, would you suggest for people, I mean, actually to, hey, put yourself out on it. You know what? You're not going to look stupid. All this is going to do is help you in the long run because you're going to be able to think on these practical and these different types of problems. And you can continue to go in and apply yourself and go and do them over and over again until you find the approach that you're going to use. I mean, is that a suggestion I mean, how beneficial is it for someone getting into the field or in the field and they've been here, 40 years?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think I've played a few Sans Net Wars now this summer, and the big thing for them is, you can win competitions, but also it's all about learning. So someone could be very experienced or, fresh out of college or something, they can play and, just go through them and learn as much as you can and keep playing and keep playing. And the more you repetitively, go through different questions, um, the easier you'll learn how to figure out the answer.
Hmm. So, what also when you're going through these, mainstream tools are super expensive or expensive. A lot of people can't utilize these. Can people get into some of these challenges you using open source tools? Be able to go in and you use some of those. I mean, what's your recommendation? Because there's a lot of people obviously that either they're mom and pop shop or they're just in school. They don't have the availability of having the tools. I mean, what's your recommendation for people, or what kind of tools can they utilize that might be open source that they can jump into some of these challenges?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many open source tools out there. I mean, Alexis Brignoni has some amazing mobile parsers with ALEAP and iLeap. Those are fantastic. Sarah Edwards has her Apollo tools. I use Autopsy very often, because it's one of the best free full forensics suite that you can use. And then there's all sorts of, command line tools that you can find on GitHub or, a lot of people will put them on Twitter. But yeah, I mean, using tools like, the SANSIF workstation, that VM, there's all sorts of, Linux tools you can apply to your evidence and get answers from that.
So now you're getting nerdy because now we're talking about all of these things, So let's talk about that. Is how important it is because you might think it wasn't important for you to start out in the CS degree and trying to get into that, but quite honestly, are you saying thank you for doing that? Because a lot of the people that are in the community that are obviously lending their expertise and building these types of tools. It's not like it's just like, oh, you know what, I'm going to write all these Python scripts. Obviously there's a lot
Mhm.
of work that's involved in it. So what do you tell to people? Is this, should you obviously don't, hey, go get a computer science and hey, go back to school and understand that, but do they need to understand how they can go and build something that say might not be available into a tool, or they can't afford a commercial tool, or it's not in this open source, or they're able to build their own YAML or some sort of script that they're able to go in and put into some of these? I mean, is that a recommendation?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I honestly, I'm probably going to go back and try to learn Python at some point because I think that's one of the most utilized tools in a lot of the free forensic tools that are out there. Whether or not you can actually, program in it is one story, but also just getting an understanding of, what current scripts are actually doing and how you may be able to, alter their scripts to do something that will benefit you in your workflows and investigations.
Yeah, I think that's honestly, I think that is, it's my opinion, but I think that's the best place to start is that you find some sort of parser, right? Say it's cookies, right? That I'm going to do this on a mobile device, that I find this type of parser for this type of file. But then you run into, say, another type of file, that some JSON file that you have that's laid out, that you're like, hey, actually, I can change this within this script that they've already had. I think that is the best thing about community, because it's not like,
Hmm.
Because then, especially on the community side of it, people are like, oh man, now you post this, hey, based upon this, now you can go in and parse this information out of this particular file that say no other or no other tool supports, or it does support it, but it's missing these types of
Hmm.
artifacts. I think that's extremely important for people to understand. It's not necessarily, okay, I need to go in and learn C sharp or some language to be able to write my own, because I think, just like you said, there's a lot that's out there already in the community that people have written that, quite honestly, you can reach out to them on Twitter and they're going to answer you and say, oh my gosh, yeah, here, let me help you out. I mean, have you found that being able to reach out to people has been, I don't want to say during this time, but yeah, during this time, the last 6 months, um, is I think the community has been more forthcoming in trying to help people. Would you say that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the best example is I was working on a little bit of a parser for Alexa's A-Leap project. I had done some, just side research on some Google phone stuff, and I said, "Hey, I know you're good at protobufs. How can you help me, read through these protobufs and parse out the information that we may need?" So we sort of did a little collaboration on that. I did a lot of the back end research, and he helped, write the full Python script for me, and then we actually ended up integrating it into his tool,
That's a fantastic
which was
story. I
fantastic.
mean, did you guys put something out about that? Because again, it's all about community type of thing. That's a great story. Obviously, collaboration between people in the industry. Yeah, I think that's great. Have you guys put anything out?
Yeah, yeah. So I put up a blog post on my blog, and I actually submitted it to the
Oh, great.
DFIR review platform, and it actually just got published
Ah, congrats.
this week.
Congratulations. That's
So
great.
um, I think that's a really fantastic to see, not only that my stuff gets published, but also I get, peer review feedback on how we can do better research on it and what we could possibly add to the research as well.
No, fantastic. I think that is really, I mean, the only way to do it is one, because as long as people they kind of subscribe to, hey, understanding that, one, you don't know everything, and if you did, then you don't, right? So trying to learn something every day is pretty important, especially in this industry, because you have to either stay up with whatever you're doing, how you are going to attack a certain situation, because you go into a digital forensic, some investigation. It's different every time, right? It's not the
Mhm.
same monotony of going to, hey, this is what I do, and I fill out this and I fill out this. I mean, it can be different, right, depending upon the investigation. So, have you found that, I guess, the challenges that you face in the digital forensic world is, or the challenges are um, something that, again, you show up and you have to decide kind of the route. It's not kind of, okay, every time in my investigation I start here and I end here. Is everything different, depending upon what's put in front of you?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely depends on the case. Very often we'll have cases that are sort of, you know, person A may have taken, confidential documents from whatever, and that sort of as the background, and so to look at like USB connections, to look at some shell bags, some sort of file history with recent files, browser history. You can sort of get some pointers on where to actually start and look, and then branch off from there as you need.
Hmm. So I know that you are super. So, you don't like to say all the things that you've won, all the coins that you've won, and all of that great stuff. But think of an investigation that you have done in your career that you have to tell people about. I mean, you don't have to tell specifics about it, but I mean, walk us through something that you walked away from that and you're like, I'm the bomb. Something that you're saying, man, that was good stuff.
So I mean, yeah, I definitely had a case in the last few years where it was a USB sort of stealing case. Um, we were looking at, USB plugs in, recent file history dumps. We were looking at all these locations when we weren't finding what we wanted. And so, we have a tool called Terracopy rolled out. And, it's a sort of a file copy tool. But what I really didn't realize was, it's logging on the back end in a database file every single action that it um, initiated. It's logging, hashes of files that have been moved, hashes of files that have been copied, and full lists of what the files are with paths. So that was like, hello, this is the best thing ever. And there was no, real research and parsing that was out there for this at the time. So I wrote up some quick, SQL queries to get a little bit more data out, and it actually helped us solve the case and show that they did take
Oh,
documents.
fantastic. So, I mean, again, to me, that's brilliant, right? Because it's in my world, obviously, with mobile device type of stuff, is that it's kind of like that 0 day app, or it's an app that people are like, oh, that's not very important. Why would
Hmm.
everyone, bad people aren't using games to chat and talk to people. They're not doing any of that, right? So let's not even worry about parsing it because it's really no one actually supports that. So, you know, being able that to me is brilliant because that is what happens almost every day in in law enforcement, in corporate or whatever. They're calling in the commercial tools and saying, hey, you know what, I have this, it's an app, and okay, they might only have like 400 people using this app, or it's an internal app, and can you support it? Well, you understand you can support it yourself, right? And that's really
Hmm.
what is happening right now is that one, I think that you can't wait for a tool to bring it out. You're going to have some sort of background or have to have some sort of background to be able to get that data yourself. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, on mobile, you're seeing a lot of SQL light databases. You're seeing protobuf databases. Sometimes your commercial tools aren't going to support those, depending on what apps they are. A lot of them you can parse pretty easy, and you just got to write some queries, and it'll pull all the data you want from it. Like you said, a lot of game apps do have chats now, and that could be a major point that might solve your case.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've watched Jack Ryan, but there was an episode where they sort of solved a case
Yeah.
using chat
Yeah.
applications from a video
Yeah,
game,
exactly.
and
Yeah. First season, I
it's kind
think.
of a real.
One of those. Yeah.
Yeah, yep.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's like a perfect real world example
It
that,
is. It makes me smile when I see that. I'm like, yeah, that's cool. Whoever the technical advisor on that, I'm like going, dude, bitching. The guy's really good. Or gal. It's awesome. Because when they start doing that,
yeah.
I'm like, are people going to open their eyes now and understand that's exactly what occurs? If they're not going to go, oh yeah, I'm going to use my iMessage, or I'm going to use some of the other apps that you might have that you can actually have communication. No, why? you know there's no one's going to think of that. So no, again, that's my biggest thing, is that people need to understand to think outside of it. Don't just rely on that. So make sure you're running your search strings, make sure you're running this through all the files and all the file content, not just running through parse data. It's extremely important for people to understand that, because a lot of the tools are just going to go and run it through whatever's been parsed and decoded that's going to do that. And hey, there is so much information out there that I mean, it's scary that things are being missed. And so, hats off to you and obviously everyone who goes and looks a little bit further into the data, because quite honestly, it's those people, the people that kind of rely on just giving me the information, thank you very much, done with it, that it's you're missing. I mean, you're missing a lot of information. So with that, so with your investigations, do you feel that it's better to take as much time. Obviously, if you're on the private side of it, it's different than on the law enforcement side of it, right? But on the private side, if you're going through all of this information, is it important for an investigator to take their time and to go through it instead of just going boom, boom, press, get it out, done, thanks, move on to the next?
Yeah, I mean, it obviously depends on the situation and depends on sort of what deadlines people are putting in place, whether it's HR or compliance. Um, I think really what the key aspect is, getting sort of a rolling reporting to those key stakeholders is, if you find one thing, um, you relay that back to them when you find it, and then continue moving forward and seeing what other things you're finding. And then obviously in sort of a final report, give them everything. But I think it's definitely important to keep that good relationship with your stakeholders and continue to keep them updated on what you're finding.
Cool. So what is it as we wrap up? Tell me what is it that I always ask this is that with artifacts that I don't want to say necessarily the go-to. Let's move it on because I always say the go-to because it could be different as you said depending upon the investigation. But what artifact that if you see is available to you, you're like gold mine. I know you mentioned like the USB sword, those kinds. Is there something else that you're going to go in and you're going to look at? It whatever investigation, right? If it's mobile devices, if it's on a box, uh, what is something that you're just going that is fantastic? And tell me what it is and explain to everyone why it's so amazing.
Yeah, I mean, that's a fully loaded question, but one of the big things that we definitely look at is, I mean, I think shell bags are a really big one because it really, the users don't know that they're there, but it also gives you sort of a look to see, how people are navigating their laptops and what they may be potentially looking at that is no longer there from a folder perspective. We've seen cases, people have plugged in drives that we don't have access to, but we can see the names of the folders and say, well, this
Yeah,
doesn't look
that's
right.
not right.
So,
Yeah, that name. Yeah, don't look here. Right.
yeah.
Yeah. So with the obviously with those shell bags, is there something else that you're going to you'll move on to? Um, take for example, using a computer. Again, I'm giving you a challenge right now. So using a computer, having communication, internal communication. This is an HR event that someone says, hey, you know, they come to HR, they're saying, hey, I have this person. This person has continually sent me these pictures, and they continue, or they're chatting with me. I do not want to have. They're being aggressive. Where do you start?
I mean, if they're on chat applications, I mean, that's a pretty easy given one that I see very often as well from, you know, there's so many different chat applications out there from WhatsApp to now Microsoft Teams to, iMessage. But I mean, those are usually dead giveaways that are easily parsed. But then you also see, other chat applications from the desktop side that may not be parsed properly. But yeah, especially in those cases, pictures or bad messages are key, especially for HR investigations.
How important is digital investigations for a company?
I'd say very important. I mean, you never know what your employees are kind of doing sometimes, and they really shouldn't be doing certain things that they are doing. So it's good to sort of, put a checks and balances in there to keep people honest and make sure that, they're getting their work done and
Right.
not doing things they shouldn't
So
be.
isn't it interesting though that you can completely, I mean, you can put a banner on the screen and explain to them that understand that anything you do on this computer is going to be monitored and all this other stuff, and people are like, oh yeah, okay, boom, click through, and then they do that stuff. I mean, is it always surprising?
I've gotten to the point where it's not surprising at all anymore. People just will do what they want to do.
Yeah, yeah, I know. I have found that amazing is that it's just it's just one of those things. It's a legal thing, right? I mean, okay, we got to make sure that because if we're monitoring, we got to make sure we put that stuff up there. But people, it's like third-party applications, right? Where's the data stored? Who owns the data? No one reads it. Boom, they just go install the app. Boom, 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 boom. Hey, don't send me a newsletter. Don't keep me on this stuff. Whatever is unchecked. But then it's just pretty much accept everything. Did they read all of it? No, didn't read any of it. Because I mean, that's the nature of it. Is it? I think it just becomes, obviously lazy that people are doing it. But again, people are human beings, and that's typically the weakest link in an investigation is that person that's sitting behind the keyboard of your phone or your computer. So, but hey, it's okay because that's what we do for a living, right? Is to deal with it.
Absolutely.
So, Kevin, unbelievable, fantastic time. Beer's done. And the one thing I want to do is thank you because the stuff that you're doing, I know you say that you are just hey starting out on this, but continue down the road, continue do what you're doing because what I've been following, it's been fantastic. It's been amazing to obviously see that because one, you want to get back to the community and you want to work hard to obviously make the world a safer place. So I do appreciate it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And thanks for having me on. It was fun.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I was going to bring up the whole, you know, Tony Stark, Iron Man, that type of stuff. I did that with Alexis. I did, talk, but I didn't want to get anybody, on a Twitter war on, who's the best superhero. But Spider-Man is, but we'll go on from that. Awesome.
Eh,
It's cool. All right. Okay, cool. Again, fantastic interview. A lot of great information. So please, I mean, if you're getting into the field, I mean, heed the advice, really. You're going to have to take some time. You're going to have to go in and take your own time to go in and dive into this because the world is changing in the digital forensic world daily. So you're going to have to put some hours in and make sure that you continue to watch this show because we just drink beer and kind of BS. And it's a good time. So again, thank you guys for watching. And for those who are going to watch the recorded one, come back next week and watch it live. All right, thanks. Have a great weekend. Long weekend. All right.